Okay, so today I want to discuss two topics regarding alcohol. It's not the typical things we talk about when we talk about alcohol, like getting drunk, why it feels good, addiction. No, nothing classic of that sort. So the first topic is, why does alcohol make you fat? You guys had a lot of opinions on it. So, no, yeah, like you don't know, question mark. Another friend said that it's not the alcohol, but it's the anju. Anju is like the snacks, the side dishes that Koreans often eat with alcohol. No one goes drinking. Like it's not like in the States where you just go to a bar and have shots. Eating is part of drinking in Korea. He also says the problem is me, not the alcohol. Another person again talking about the side dishes, and also alcohol impairing our decision making, the self control, the hunger hormones. All of this is partially true as well. And then there was a slightly correct answer. She only knew that because I had explained this to her before. So I'm gonna keep that covered for now. Some people think, is it like the sugar content and the alcohol? A lot of this is like the classic, Korean gossip. Or, is there more to the story, right? And secondly, the main topic of today is like, when is it most dangerous to be drinking alcohol, right? Here's what you guys thought. Other than, alcohol literally killing you from being drunk while driving kind of thing. He's saying it's also dangerous when your liver enzymes are elevated, like when you take Tylenol, acetaminophen. Also, this is also true every time. That is my favorite answer. When you're already drunk as fuck, that's also true. Just being drunk is also pretty dangerous. Mixing with meds, we have another one. And then we actually had the answer as well. And again, she only knew this because I had explained it to her. So we'll get to all of this once I explain, right? Once I explain, we'll see what is partially true and what is a dangerous misconception and what is actually the correct answer. Right? Another way to rephrase the second question is like, if you have to drink alcohol, how can you keep your body most safe, biologically speaking, by avoiding this situation? Right. So let's try to answer these questions, these two questions one by one, by using this diagram on the right. I know it's a lot and super busy, but I'll break it down and just show you what's important in a way that's hopefully easy to understand. So don't leave, just hang with me for a little bit. And a lot of this will make sense. It's not as scary as it looks, right? So, do you know why alcohol makes you fat, and which situation is the most dangerous situation to be drinking alcohol? These are the two questions we're gonna start try to answer. All right, so here's the elementary kid explanation of it. Alcohol makes everything become fat, right? It's not the sugar content that makes soju slightly sweet. Although I've seen some ads for like a new soju that contains zero sugar, replacing it with artificial sweeteners like just like Diet Coke is. It's not the anju, which of course is calories in general, right? Alcohol is also a lot of calories. It's like closer to the amount of calories fat has, rather than being closer to like carbs or protein. But it's not directly why alcohol makes you fat, right? It's actually the alcohol itself as the cause of this all. And here's the high school biology explanation. Glucose, right, is the most basic sugar molecule that gives our human body energy, right? So when we consume alcohol, that glucose, right, that you get from eating or in your body to give you that energy, instead of being broken down to become useful energy, it becomes fat instead. and that's going to be deposited around your organs, your stomach, your arms, etc. Right? And for those who remember high school biology, the useful energy we're talking about here is ATP. Okay? Now here's the med school explanation to understand how this all happens, to see how it all begins. Let's take a look at this specific portion of the diagram, just this top part. Whoops, why is that happening? Oh no, it won't let me go back. Okay, so let's take a look at this diagram. This diagram shows us how our body breaks down alcohol so that it's no longer in our body, right? We don't stay drunk forever, right? That process to undrunk us is done by these two simple steps in our body, right? Mostly in the liver. So here is ethanol. This is the alcohol that we drink. There are different types of alcohol, but the one found in soju and beer is this alcohol called ethanol. The first step is to make that ethanol into this second molecule called acetaldehyde, right? It's done by this enzyme called alcohol dehydrogenase. Enzymes are just proteins in the cells of our bodies to help these processes to occur. Unfortunately, right, this acetaldehyde is very, very poisonous to our body. So our body has to do one more step to get rid of that alcohol in our body, and that's this third molecule called acetate, which is no longer toxic to our body, right? So once all the alcohol has become acetate, we no longer feel the effects of being tipsy and all. But now imagine this. What if we get rid of this enzyme that does the second step? Our bodies will try to continue like breaking down alcohol, trying to go this way, but it's gonna get stuck here, right, before the second step. So what's going to happen? It's like a traffic jam, right? We're going to accumulate lots and lots of this acetaldehyde that's toxic to our body. And this is actually what makes us want to vomit. And here's the $1 million question. Guess which group of people have less of this second enzyme? That's right, Koreans, right? And guess what is the first thing that happens to our body when this acetaldehyde toxic molecule builds up? It makes our face red, and that is literally why it's called the Asian flush, right? So contrary to Koreans' beliefs, your face being red does not mean alcohol is being digested and broken down. It's a bad sign. It means your body cannot break down alcohol, and you're making lots and lots of the super toxic molecule in your body. I talk more about this and how like alcohol warming you up is a stupid, terrible, dangerous misinformation on another video on my YouTube channel. Now, just to make things clear, this first molecule, ethanol itself, is also bad. Before it even gets to the second step, it's bad. Like it can get to your brain. It's a CNS depressant, and so that causes the sedative effects, right? And that's why you feel drowsy and sleepy when you drink. But we're not focusing on this part of the alcohol. We're just trying to answer why alcohol makes you fat and which situation is most dangerous to drink alcohol. But I just wanted to clarify that. Okay, so now let's take a look at the bottom part of this diagram, right? It's the same thing, but I just lowered it. We're looking at more details right below it. If you look, in order for these breakdown processes to occur, we need something called NAD+. This is just something in our body that is used to allow this alcohol breakdown to occur. I won't go into the science of NAD+, but when we use up that molecule called NAD+, this molecule, it becomes NADH in the process. So you can imagine if you drink a lot of alcohol, you'll start to build up a lot of NADH in your body, right? You use up the NAD+, Now you have NADH. It's transformed into NADH when it's used up, and that starts to build up. This is where it all begins, right? You do not have enough NAD plus in your body, and you have too much NADH. So everything else in our body that also requires NAD plus is going to be broken. And everything else that uses NADH is going to go so much faster than it normally does because there's this suddenly huge surplus of NADH in our body, all because of alcohol, right? So try to remember this. No NAD plus, too much NADH. So what are those processes that are affected because of the lack of NAD plus and too much NADH? So let's take a look at this part of the diagram first. Okay, so this part of the diagram is showing how the sugar that we eat, right? These are the carbs, the soft drinks, the rice, the pasta, right? It all becomes glucose. It goes through this really complicated process of going from glucose to becoming useful energy, right? This is ATP for those who are curious, right? But look what is required to make this process happen. NAD plus, right? And we saw how with alcohol, all the sugar we eat can no longer become useful energy because our body no longer has NAD plus, right? It was all used up trying to detoxify our body of alcohol. So once this process is blocked, you can imagine the traffic jam, just like before, right? The stuff before starts building up. These things start building up because we can't go through the entire process. So now we'll see what happens when those backup products start building up. As an aside, while this part is less important in our understanding of how alcohol becomes fat, our body does have a method of making glucose when we don't have enough of it. On this left side, but this process is also blocked and starts going backwards because we don't have NAD plus and too much NADH. This part may become more important later. We may try to answer in the second when we try to answer the second question. I'm just trying to point it out for completion's sake because you guys might just be curious about all the arrows. Okay, so now back to our main discussion. Let's talk about those three molecules that start building up. Actually, of those three, let's just look at two. Right? Let's just look at the two. And this is our final step in understanding how alcohol ends up becoming fat, right? Or how it makes everything else become fat. So let's start with this one, right? Acetyl-CoA. And guess what happens to acetyl-CoA, right? Remember, these are the products that are backing up because we've been unable to make useful energy. It becomes fat, right? And this is literally the fat that is stored in our bellies. It's the fat that makes your arms sag. It's the fat that goes around your hips and your butt. Unfortunately, it not only puts the fat around your belly, it puts the fat around your organs as well, especially your liver. So not only is like the toxicity of alcohol itself killing your liver, you're starting to put fat all over your liver as well, which also kills it. This is one way that alcohol does slowly kill you. You start putting fat on your liver without even knowing it because this isn't something that you can see, right? And when your liver dies, you die. All because this process of making energy, right? Remember this? We're trying to go down here, right? But this is blocked. You can't go through here. So all of these stuff before start building up. And because of that buildup, unfortunately, it's diverted to make fat. It has to go somewhere. These things can't just stay, and there are other processes that use it, and one of those is fat, right? So these things happen. They happen at a certain level. Let's say normally when you're eating food, it happens at a level of 1, but now because of alcohol, it's happening at a level 10. Okay, so now let's look at this molecule. So I was just talking about how that literally becomes a fat that's put around our belly. That's why you get the pot belly with being with drinking alcohol. So now let's take a look at this molecule, glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. This also becomes fat. As you can see, there's another pathway that literally is diverted to the same place as the other molecule, right? And remember how because of alcohol, we lost all our NAD plus and we have too much NADH? Well, this process actually needs NADH. And now that we have so much NADH, this is further sped up to become fat, right? If we didn't drink alcohol, we wouldn't have a lot of NADH, and this process would be slow. But now that we did drink alcohol, not only is it backing up here, it's making this become fat faster because we have too much NADH, right? It's like a double whammy, right? Two things that is making you fat, or like three things in this case, right? There are two other things in the middle here that also happens, but it's less important in our discussion of how alcohol makes you fat. So I'll just skip it for now. Okay, so we're done. Like that's how alcohol makes you fat, right? To summarize, when you drink alcohol, you run out of NAD plus and start building up too much NADH. And because of that, right, your body can no longer, so we run out of NAD plus, right? And we have too much NADH. And because of that, your body can no longer make energy via the normal pathway of using sugar. And that leads to these molecules building up in the body that are converted into becoming fat. So now, I guess the astute student might ask, then can you stop becoming fat when you drink alcohol if you just don't eat any sugar at all, right? Because the problem is it's the sugar that's becoming fat because of the alcohol, right? So what if we just don't eat any sugar at all, starve a day or two and just drink alcohol? Will that prevent me from getting fat? Because there's no sugar to become fat to begin with, right? Of course, alcohol itself does have some sugar in it, so that's going to become fat. But like, let's say you just starve yourself. That's a very logical thinking, right? But that leads to our second and final question of our discussion. What situation is the most dangerous to be drinking alcohol, right? So this is the same diagram that we've been using with all the same level. Well, here's the thing about your body, right? It's not one person work, right? It's not one person doing all the work. In this human being, there's a lot of cells. And even within one cell, it's a lot of stuff happening at once. It's like a mixed pool of just like billions of little things all happening at once. So while yes, if you drink alcohol, the sugar in your body will become fat, not all of it, right? There's still some that will make it down this path and become energy. That energy is what keeps you alive, right? Because fat itself can't be used in our brain. So if you starved yourself and had no sugar left in your body and drank alcohol, you will collapse. Like you'll collapse immediately because you have nothing left to even make the smallest amount of useful energy to your brain. So yes, while that sugar that's in your body from eating, from the food that you had, from the anju, mostly becomes fat, at least some of it is keeping your brain alive, right? Fat itself can't be used in our brain. That's a whole different story, right? But glucose can be used in our brain. And so that's why the Korean advice of like, please eat something while you're drinking, eat the anju, like this culture around that is actually very, very good advice. Like it's literally preventing you from dying. While yes, you're making yourself fat, but not for the reason you think, right? It's not the anju's fault, but rather the alcohol's fault that anju becomes fat. But thankfully, some of that is keeping you alive. So being fat is like a side effect. If you didn't have the anju at all, you'd be dead, right? So let's take a look back at your answers, right? Yes. So she said it's related to the NADH thing. It is. And she only got it right because I explained it to her. And we have another friend, right, who said the problem is you. You're the sinner. And part of that is true, right? For drinking, for making that choice, but also like just the biology, right? It's partly to blame, but not for the reason you think. And anju as well, right? That does become fat, but it's not because of anju, right? Just the consumption of it. It's actually the consumption of alcohol, right? If you just had the anju itself, yes, like having a lot of food and stuff will make you fat, but normally it becomes energy. But it's when you add alcohol on top of it, it becomes fat. So actually, the sinner is the alcohol, not the anju, right? And that's the biggest misconception that Koreans have. And in fact, if anything, anju is what's keeping you alive. And so we can imagine which situation, right? Oh yeah, so alcohol makes your body convert everything to fat, but the anju becomes fat. Yes, the anju will become fat as well, most of it, but thanks to God, it's not all of it. Okay, so which situation is the most dangerous to drink alcohol? Jiol 22, my friend here said, other than like driving while you're drunk and getting hit by a car kind of thing, when your liver enzymes are abnormally high, like taking Tylenol, acetaminophen, right? Yes, these are dangerous situations to be drinking as well. It's not good. It's true every time. This is my favorite answer. Literally, yes, every time when you're already drunk as fuck, we already, and now mixing with meth again. It's true. Like taking drugs with alcohol in general is like a big no-no, but it won't kill you instantly in most cases unless you chug like a entire tub of like Tylenol, which is a common method of suicide actually. But it won't in most cases it won't kill you instantly. Even drinking grapefruit juice actually with alcohol is dangerous. So yeah, it actually makes you drunk faster actually. But the real answer is on an empty stomach, or actually after you exercise, right? After you exercise, you also have low sugar in your body because you've used a lot of that sugar for energy. Or when you're on an empty stomach, you don't have a lot of sugar in your body to begin with. Both of those situations are very, very dangerous to be drinking alcohol. Thankfully, not 100% of that anju will become fat. Some of it will still feed your brain and keep you alive. All right? So please eat if you're gonna drink. Don't drink on an empty stomach or after an exercise. Literally talking to every Korean sports club out there. After you do like a big sports competition or exercise, they all go out to drink. It's just, yeah, it's dangerous, right? Thankfully, most people eat while they're doing that and have enough, glucose in your body, that kind of thing. You'll get fat, but would you rather literally just like collapse on the floor immediately? Not a lot of things can make us shut off in a snap. You can puncture your lungs. Your heart can be bleeding out. Your liver can be dead. You can be missing a kidney. But actually, all of these things don't kill you immediately. But low blood sugar, you will just collapse on the floor. And so that is how alcohol makes everything fat and drinking on an empty stomach or after like an exercise when your blood sugar is low are the most dangerous situations to be drinking alcohol. So make sure you eat, even though it might make you fat.